All right, Lovett, we've got some big tariff news today. Earlier this morning, President Trump announced the following. Tariffs on China have increased to 125%.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs amid negotiations. So basically everyone else is getting a pause. The tariff level is brought down to a universal 10%. Canada and Mexico are part of that 10%. There's going to be some sector-based tariffs like pharma and lumber and ship, but that all happens tomorrow. The markets, they liked this. The S&P is currently up 9%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Can I tell you something, Tommy?
Mm-hmm.
This morning, I bought the dip.
You bought the dip. Good for you.
I was like, I feel stupid. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing, but I was like, I don't know. I was like, something's gonna happen. And so thank you, Mr. Trump.
Congrats. So the S&P is up 9%. However, it is still down year to date, although significantly less. It's down about 11% from the peak before this madness. So clearly, if Trump just hadn't executed this policy of arbitrarily tariffing basically every country in the world, except for like the Russians, the Belarusians, the Cubans, and the North Koreans, the stock market would be higher than it is.
Yeah, this is a real classic example of beating your head against the wall because it feels good when you stop.
Yes.
We're still pretty fucked up, but not as fucked up as we were Monday morning.
And it's leading to some of the most annoying political reactions possible. So here, this is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. He tweeted, "Scott Bessent and I sat with the president while he wrote one of the most extraordinary truth posts of his presidency." Mm-hmm. That truth post being the announcement of the delay of these tariffs. "The world is ready to work with President Trump to fix global trade, and China has chosen the opposite direction." Your reaction to Mr. Lutnick?
The pause is a failure on all of Trump's terms. So why did Trump put in place tariffs? There were ostensibly three contradictory reasons. One, it was a means of raising vast amounts of revenue to pay for tax cuts for the rich. Two, it was a means to negotiate better trade deals. Or three, it was a means of permanently changing trade so that we reshore manufacturing to America.
Four, fentanyl for some reason.
Fentanyl for some reason.
Immigration.
Right. Maybe you make a fourth bucket. I put that in the negotiation bucket. It's a tool to get concessions on non-economic. It's a political tool, not an economic tool. Putting in place tariffs and then pausing them doesn't achieve any of those goals. It just unleashes a lot of panic. Now,
he blinked.
Absolutely, he blinked. He didn't achieve any of the goals he set out to achieve. All he did was roil the markets, scare a bunch of people. You know, there's a lot of like bluster on the internet about this, but like there's a lot of people who rely on their retirement savings not 6 months from now, right now, every day. It changes how people are going to live. There are reports about people like that have had to forego buying a new car, taking a trip, the day-to-day expenses of living because they were not anticipating that there would be a 20% drop in their retirement fund.
Yeah. So we have had Fox News on in our office that you, me, and Jon Favreau share for months because it's interesting. You learn something about kind of like the MAGA message that's getting pushed today. Frankly, their chyrons are funnier. It's more entertaining a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I just want to be there live when Jesse Waters comes out.
And so the tenor of Fox News after this announcement from Trump was straight up North Korea propaganda bullshit. Yeah. This is the art of the deal. He's a genius. Look at how much the stock market is now ripping. There's no sort of context that the stock market was down because of actions by Trump and now slightly less down because of actions by Trump. But there was one person who came on who kind of punctured that North Korea propaganda style programming. Let's watch a clip.
Let's be clear what happened. Who capitulated here and why? And, I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources. And the reason why is because of the bond market and what happened last night. Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down when you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan.
So that's Charles Gasparino.
I don't know, Charlie was friends, I suppose.
He's a Fox News business reporter coming in with some actual facts.
Yes.
And what he's talking about is normally when the markets are crashing and people are selling stocks, investors flock to safer assets. The safest of the safe asset over centuries or decades has been treasury bills. But in this case, people were selling treasury bills. And we know that because the yields were rising. And when yields rise, the price of the assets fall. It was not totally clear why this was happening. Bloomberg had a great piece speculating on a number of reasons. But what Gasparino was talking about there was the concern that foreign investors would dump their treasuries, making the price of them go down. There was a lot of speculation that China could dump its vast volume of treasury bills, but instead apparently it was the Japanese. And if that's happening, if the stock market is crashing and it's getting more expensive to borrow and people are selling off treasury bonds, that is a recipe for economic calamity.
Donald Trump believes that anytime you have a trade deficit with another country, you're getting screwed, you're getting ripped off. I think in some cases saying that you're in a free trade relationship with China is like a contradiction in terms. They're not a free country. Like I think there's reasonable, like Democrats agree with that.
They suppress wages,
of course.
They manipulate the currency, there's a lot of trade barriers, they steal our IP.
They subsidize vast parts of their manufacturing base. Ironically, right, when America is acting in a way that's like destabilizing the global economy, one respite, one safe haven is American treasuries, which are basically an investment in the faith of that you believe the American government is a stable, reliable entity. And it is really scary to imagine countries no longer believing that. So overnight, like if you were watching this happen overnight, like we didn't know what today would bring. And I think that's why Trump blinked. Like I think it was genuinely scary. And by the way, it's great that he blinked. Thank God he blinked. It's absolutely good that he did this because there's a lot of reasons, right? Companies just desperately need cash, so they're unloading their treasuries. Other countries are trying to punish the United States for doing this, right? Or other countries are genuinely no longer viewing the United States as a safe place to put their money. A lot of that is really dangerous for us because we have a massive debt that we finance through these treasuries. And like, it's a small example of the way in which Trump and the people around Trump, they live like Scott Bessent today was talking about how, we've rewarded Wall Street long enough. Now we're going to do things for Main Street. And as like Dave Portnoy pointed out, a lot of people point out, this is a Wall Street fucking guy. Like these are guys that built billions of dollars on a stable, reliable American system that they don't care enough about to protect. And we see them just basically playing with fire now.
And also like something like 60% of Americans own stocks. It's a similar percentage to the percentage of Americans who are employed. This is not the stock market of 30 years ago where you're walking around with a coupon and there was a lot of friction in the process. You can buy and sell stocks from your phone. We all have 401ks. I mean, like, so the idea that this was like a Wall Street, not a Main Street problem, it's insufferable, annoying bullshit. And these are the same people that every time the markets would go down under Joe Biden would like raise hell and scream about it.
Yeah, and on top of that, the companies that are traded employ millions of Americans. It's a big part of the economy. And now we like them embracing this ridiculous populist language when they are basically hurting everybody, and a tariff is the biggest middle class tax cut in history. Well, the biggest tax cut in history, while also pursuing tax cuts for the richest people and themselves, is pretty rich. But like we shouldn't make policies just to benefit Wall Street, but this is something obliterating everybody.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, this was not going to end in the stock market. This was going to lead to companies firing people, potential recession. Like there were a lot of bad downstream effects here. Finally, President Trump, of course, weighed in on his own actions today. Let's listen to a clip.
I just want fair. There will be fair deals for everybody, but they weren't fair to the United States. They were sucking us dry.
One thing that have they been ever able to offer any explanation for why they're still putting tariffs on countries that we have a trade surplus with, like Australia? No explanation?
Nope. No explanation. I think was it Mark Warner, a Democratic U.S. Senator, was really pushing the administration on this in front of Congress yesterday, and there was just no answer. There's no method to the madness. We're tariffing tiny islands where there's just penguins. We're tariffing the hell out of our friends. We're not tariffing the Russians. Like, none of it makes sense.
Yeah. Also, by the way, the explanation, they were pressed on this, too. Like, why aren't you tariffing the Russians? Like, why would we tariff the Russians? We're in the middle of a delicate negotiation. But they put a tariff on Ukraine.
Right.
Which doesn't make any fucking sense. The other part of this, too, is there's still, like, I'm glad that we have stopped using the potentially ChatGPT generated chart of countries with ridiculous tariff numbers, not based on reciprocal tariffs, but based on a trade deficit, and in some cases incorrect. Also, numbers that didn't include services, which America sells around the world and makes a ton of money doing, which is actually really good for our economy. But there is still a 10% tariff on the whole world. And like that is still a huge cost to America. It's a huge regressive tax that everyone's going to have to pay. It's going to have huge consequences for domestic manufacturing. Because, by the way, we sell things around the world. We make things that ship around the world. And that's why a lot of factories in the last couple of days have been announcing possible layoffs. Like, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is a 90-day reprieve. Trump could go back to tariffing all of these other countries. We don't know. They claim that all these countries are coming to the administration and trying to cut deals, but they haven't announced any deals yet. They haven't finalized anything. And actually, you're reading story after story where, foreign diplomats are like, we can't get a meeting at the White House. We can't get anyone to call us back. And again, I know no one cares about like the law anymore, but we have we have trade agreements with a lot of these countries that were ratified by Congress, like with the South Koreans, and we're tariffing the fuck out of them anyway.
By the way, some of these agreements that Donald Trump says are so terrible are agreements he negotiated.
Right.
The agreement with Canada and the agreement with Mexico are agreements that Donald Trump himself negotiated. Who did this terrible deal? You fucking did, you dumb fuck. And by the way, it's a small thing, but like, this is why we were like, oh, it's so interesting. Donald Trump would have been richer today had he just put his money in a fucking index fund. If he took his inheritance from his father and put it in an index fund, he would be a much richer man today than all the kind of adventures he's had in business. And you see why. He's a fucking moron.
He's a moron. Speaking of sucking us dry, I want to read you 3 tweets.
Oh, that didn't go where I wanted it to.
Thank you on behalf of all Americans. At Scott Besant Rocks. This was brilliantly executed by at Real Donald Trump textbook Art of the Deal. Bill Ackman, emotionally unstable, hedge fund guy, part-time MAGA, full-time asshole.
The full-time asshole. Yeah, right. His career is in finance, but his passion is being the dumbest motherfucker on earth. If Joe Biden, when he took office, had caused a massive 20-point, 25-point drop in the markets, and then did an announcement that caused a rebound that got you, let's say, being generous, halfway back, you think these people would be celebrating?
No.
Of course not. No. And this is the other part of this. Are these people not able to conceive of a strategy that would result in them getting what they want without causing all of this chaos and turmoil?
They love the drama.
And like, I guess there's one, if you're going to just be generous, which I'm not really in the mood to do, but you would say maybe if Trump had just announced these tariffs prospectively, that it wouldn't create enough fear to actually result in whatever changes they claim to want. But that's not an argument for not telling anybody what changes you want.
Right.
We're like, even if like it's like you started shooting hostages before issuing your demands.
Exactly. Or let's say there's a version where he's like, okay, on August 1st, these tariffs are going to go into place. Give yourself some time to like call back the Chinese, for example.
Or by the way, let's be even more aggressive. Tariffs are going to affect on China because we're going to isolate China. Right. But by the way, until some of these other issues are resolved, 3 months from now, the tariffs are going on everywhere else. I am really putting these China tariffs on. They exist. You can see that. I am serious.
Right.
There's no like long-term
much
planning.
Smarter strategy because China is the real challenge here.
It's just all of these guys that were desperately hoping that Trump wasn't as stupid as they thought does something to undo 30 to 40% of the stupidity. I'll say 60% of the stupid. And now they're acting as if he's the greatest president in history. All he has done is undone part of his mistake. That's it.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So the markets are finally closed. The S&P is up 9.5 points on the day, which is a massive swing. But again, still the high this year, from the high this year, it's still down 11%. So we're not fully back. A lot
Trillions
of people
of
lost
dollars.
A lot of money. And
Trillions of dollars.
If you panicked and you sold when the markets were down, you'll never get that money back.
Not me. And stick with me for any more stock tips. I'll be starting my own influencer morning routine and stock practices blog. Do they call it vlogs anymore? Probably not.
Do like a TikTok by the dip show. Maybe just get into crypto.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, finally get into crypto.
All right. Well, I think that's it from us. Thanks for watching this YouTube exclusive about the markets.
Yeah, and sorry to Trump makes your being sucked dry not as. There's a lot of different ways to be sucked dry, and I agree the way that he's describing it sucks.
Talk to you guys soon.